Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. For today's video I have a little reading vlog for you for Buzzwordathon, which was created by Books and Lala. I will leave a link to Kayla's announcement video in the description box because she will definitely explain all of it a lot better than I will, but just to give you a little rundown on what this readathon is, or reading challenge rather, this originally started off as a readathon that would take place like once or twice a year for a week. There would be a buzzword and you would have to read books with that buzzword in the title, or there would be a theme of buzzwords. So I participated in this a couple years ago when the theme was colors. So I read books like Darling Rose Gold or Across the Green Grass Fields, and I had a really fun time participating in it. But for the last year or possibly 2 years, I'm not 100% sure, Kayla turned it from being a readathon to more of a reading challenge that actually takes place across the entire year, and every month there is a different buzzword or theme of buzzwords, and you can read basically as many or as little books as you want for each month. I decided as one of my reading goals this year was to participate in it every single month, and I would set 1 week of each month to dedicate to reading books with that particular buzzword in the titles. So it is now the last week of January, so I thought it's probably about time that I should probably do this challenge for this month. So for January there are 2 buzzwords, and that is life or death. So shockingly, I only had 1 book on my owned TBR that had life or death in the title, and that 1 book would be The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. So this has been sitting on my shelf for over a year now because I am highly anticipating reading this book because it is inspired by Crimson Peak, which is one of my all-time favorite films. However, I am very excited to read this book, but I've been kind of avoiding reading it because ever since it came out, it has not been getting good reviews, which pains me because I was so excited for when this book was going to release, and it has such a beautiful cover, and just the fact that it's inspired by one of my favorite films that is kind of underrated. Like, I feel like I don't hear about it that often, so I'm really like dreading but also looking forward to finally picking this book up and seeing what I think of it. So if you're not familiar with this book or like Crimson Peak as an idea, in this book we're following our main character called Jane, who ends up in this marriage of convenience with this doctor who marries her under one condition, that she cannot go to his family mansion that is like crumbling outside of town, but she ends up going there anyway, and this guy that she ends up marrying might not be exactly who he says that he is. So yes, I'm equally excited as I am dreading finally picking this book up, but this is the first book on my TBR which has death in the title. On the flip side of that, the second book on my TBR is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. One of my coworkers actually lent this book to me because she really enjoyed it, and obviously this fits this challenge perfectly. So this is also the first V.E. Schwab book that I will ever be reading. She is such a popular author, but I've just never gotten around to picking up one of her books before. But I will say, of all of her books, this is the one where the premise of it intrigues me the most. In this book we follow our main character Addie LaRue, and I believe she makes a deal with the devil or a demon or something equivalent to that, and she is able to live for a really long time, or she doesn't die, but in exchange nobody remembers her. So if they see her and they're talking to her, they will remember her, but the second they turn away, they forget who she is. So nobody ever remembers her, but I think she might meet somebody that does actually remember her, and that is going to be like the inciting incident of the story, but I'm not 100% sure. It's been a hot second since I feel like I've heard somebody talk about this on BookTube, but my coworker really enjoyed it, so she lent it to me, and like I said, this works perfectly for this challenge of reading books with life or death in the title. So this is my TBR for the week. I feel like these books have eerily similar covers and titles. They're both primarily black, and they also both have full names in the title as well, so it kind of feels like these were the books I was meant to pick up for this reading challenge. So I think I'm going to start off with The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue for the simple reason of, just in case I end up not liking this book, I don't want it to end me in a reading slump where I then won't be able to get through this one. And on the flip side, if I do really enjoy this book because it's based on one of my favorite films, everything about it seems right up my alley, I don't want this to end me in a book hangover where I won't be able to enjoy this one. So I'm going to start with this one. Is this another excuse because I'm just dreading reading this book in case I hate it? Possibly. But we're going to start with this one anyway. I have the day off from work, so I'm hoping to get quite a bit done in this book today. Like I said, I only have 1 week left of January, so I feel like I should be able to get through both of these books in that time, but you never know what might happen. So I'm going to try to get a head start today while I have the day off. So I think I might read like 50 pages of this book just to kind of get a feel for the writing and what exactly the story is going to be about and the characters and stuff like that. And then I think I might do a run to Dunkin' Donuts to get some iced coffee, and I also would like to catch up on filming for my social media platforms like TikTok or Instagram Reels, because I have not filmed anything for those in like 2 weeks at this point, so I'd like to get a little bit caught up today since I have the day off of work. But yes, I'm very excited to jump into my first ever V.E. Schwab as well, because I know she is a very beloved writer. So it's a bit later now, I'm just about to start cooking dinner, but I thought I would give you guys a little update because I am 126 pages into this book, which I think puts me at a little bit more than a quarter of the way through, since this is about 440 pages in total. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not loving it so far, but there also isn't anything that I'm actively disliking about the book. I just kind of feel like not much has happened. Like, we're over 100 pages in, and I still feel like I'm reading the beginning, like, introductory kind of parts of a story, even though we're already 100 pages in. Like, I just feel like I'm waiting for something to happen. So maybe that's just me, but there isn't anything that I'm actively like disliking about the book. I think the writing is fine. I kind of wish that it would have been told in the first person rather than third person, but that's just a personal preference. But everything else about it, like, I find the concept of it to be very intriguing and I enjoy the characters, but I just feel like I'm waiting for something to happen. It's a pretty slow burn kind of story, which I was told going into it, but it's probably a little bit slower than what I thought it was going to be. This also is a very frustrating book to read. Like, I feel like by the end of this book, I'm not going to look back on it and feel like that was a fun book to read, because if you think about it, the concept of the story and this life that she lives is genuinely frustrating. Like, if you think about the idea of living where nobody remembers you, it's incredibly frustrating. She pretty much is forced to live a life of crime and deceit, because if you can't be remembered by somebody, you can't go out and get a job because your employer would forget that they hired you. You can't go and rent an apartment because your landlord would forget that they rented to you. So there's all these problems in her life that just force her to have to kind of live this life of crime and lying a lot and deceit and stuff like that. So it is genuinely a very like frustrating story. I feel like it's not super entertaining for me right now because it's just kind of frustrating to read. So yes, that is my update for Addie LaRue. I'm hoping that once the two characters, because we have kind of been introduced to this other character that, I don't know if this would be considered a spoiler, but I think I mentioned it in the intro clip, was that she meets somebody that can remember her. I think we have been introduced to that character, but they haven't interacted a lot yet, but I feel like if we get to a point in the story where they interact more, I will start to enjoy the story more. So I'm just kind of waiting to get up to that point. I feel like that is the problem, is that I'm just waiting for this thing to happen, and it's not happening yet because this is a very slow burn kind of book. So yes, that is my update for right now. Now I'm going to go and make myself dinner, which will consist of leftovers from last night's dinner, which was tacos, which I love. It's one of my favorite foods and will probably be what I eat for lunch tomorrow as well. But I think this is going to be my last update for tonight because my eyes are kind of starting to like water and burn, so I definitely have to take my makeup off, and I don't really like to film when I'm not wearing any makeup, so that means this will probably be the last update for tonight. I do have to work for the next 2 days, so I don't know how much vlogging I will get done over the next 2 days, but we'll just have to see how it goes. So it's been about 2 days since the last time I updated you guys. I thought I would give you another update because I am over 300 pages into this book and I have some more thoughts on it. But I'm sorry that the lighting is really bad right now, but it's like in the evening, the sun is going away, and there are people screaming outside, so I'm sorry if you can hear that. But I have had the worst couple of days. I've had worse things happen, but these past couple of days have just been very stressful at work. I've never had to deal with so much just frustrating ridiculousness, and today I had the day off, so I thought I'm gonna relax. I'm going to read my book. I just had to run a couple of errands with my mom. We walked out of the apartment and I had to call the police, which is of course how my day would go on my day off. Like, I should expect nothing less from my life so far. But unfortunately, I witnessed some pretty disturbing animal abuse happening, so I called the police. I didn't really know if they were going to do anything about it, but about an hour later, animal control called me, and I also explained the situation to them, and they seem to take it very seriously, so hopefully the situation will be rectified. But that is how my day has gone so far. But I did do a bit of reading today. I think I read over 50 pages today so far, so I'm on page 317, which puts me a little bit more than 100 pages from the end. So as predicted, as soon as things started to happen in this book, I started to enjoy it more. It just took a really long time to get there. So I am enjoying it a bit more. I'm still not loving this book, and again, I think it's kind of personal preference that I tend to prefer when books are told in the first person, because I do feel a little bit of a disconnect with the characters. Like, I just don't really feel very close with them, if that makes sense. Also, this book is told in a way where the chapters are very short, which usually I love because it makes it read faster. And I will say I'm reading pretty quickly through this book. However, the way that the story is told is that there's a lot of in the present, next chapter is in the past, and back and forth and back and forth. And I feel like when the chapters are so short and we keep jumping back and forth so quickly, it just feels very jarring. Like, it just keeps kind of pulling me out of the moment so quickly. Like, I prefer short chapters, but I feel like when it comes to alternating between timelines, or even if it was alternating between characters as well, I think when they're really short and you're jumping around that much, it's kind of jarring for me personally. So that is how I'm feeling with this book up to this point. I'm thinking this is probably going to be like a 3-star book. The ending, like I said, I don't have very far to go, so the ending would really have to do something like shocking, like some kind of twist that's really going to catch me off guard for me to give this book a higher rating than how I feel about it right now. It is only 4:30, so there is a possibility that I could finish this book tonight, but I'm not 100% sure. However, tomorrow, if I don't update you guys again beforehand, tomorrow I have to go into work in the morning, but because of like driving situations and stuff like that, I actually have to go to work about an hour, hour and a half earlier than when my shift actually starts. So that means for that full hour, hour and a half, I will just have no distraction reading time at work. So hopefully I will either finish this book at that point, or I will get started with The Death of Jane Lawrence, because I am starting to get very excited about picking this book up, and hopefully I will enjoy this a bit more than this one, because if this is like a 3-star reading vlog for both books, that would be very disappointing. But hopefully that will not be the case, and this will pull through in the end. So yes, that is my reading update so far, and I will hopefully update you guys sometime soon. Hi guys, so it is now many days later. At this point, I don't even know how many days have gone by since the last time that I updated you guys, but I have finished The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and before I talk to you about my final thoughts on this book, I thought I would just give you a little update as to what has been happening over the last couple of days and why I am probably going to end this vlog after this clip instead of reading The Death of Jane Lawrence like I was planning to. This is not what I wanted to do at all, and I know that this probably is not a very interesting vlog at all, but I don't want to waste everything that I already filmed. I did make it a goal of mine to participate in Buzzwordathon every month, and I don't think that there is a set amount of books that you have to read in order to participate in it, so I have read one, and I'm going to upload this vlog. But to give you just a little rundown on what has happened over the last couple of days, I believe I mentioned earlier in this vlog that things were happening with my job that were stressing me out. I don't know exactly what word choices I used, but things happened. At first they seemed very ridiculous, and then things ended up taking a very serious turn because this is my job, and obviously this is how I pay for my life, but also it's something that I'm at 40 hours a week, and if it starts to get to a point where it is now unsafe for me to be there, then I have to make decisions. So without going into too much detail in this video, I've had to make decisions about my job, and it has been very stressful for me. So when that started to happen, I found myself not being able to concentrate on reading at all. This has happened a lot of times whenever there's something great on my mind, especially if I have to make a decision. Like, even when I'm stressed out about something, I can usually still read, but when I have to, like, make a choice and I'm just running through the pros and cons in my mind constantly, cannot focus on reading. And that is what happened with, like, the last 100 pages of this book. So I finished this much later than the last time that I updated you guys, and I think I said I was going to finish it like the next day. It took longer than that because I could not concentrate. And so that is why I'm going to end this vlog here, because while I would like to read The Death of Jane Lawrence, I don't want to like taint my experience of reading that book, because I just know I'm not going to be able to concentrate on it right now. So I'm just not going to pick it up. If you're curious what I am picking up next, I did already start Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. I'm like 30 pages into it, but I've already been told that I will hate this book, so I'm really not too concerned if I'm so distracted that I can't really concentrate on it, because I've already kind of been told that I won't enjoy this. But I still wanted to read it anyway, just because I know this is one of her most popular books, and I just kind of wanted to see what the hype is all about. And already I could just tell that, like, it's much easier for me to focus on this book and kind of just read it in tiny chunks rather than more of a, like, fantasy or historical book or something like that, if that makes sense. So with all of that out of the way, like I said, I really don't want to have to end this vlog here, but at this point there's only like a day and a half left of January for me to be able to read The Death of Jane Lawrence. I don't want to rush through it. I want to be able to savor it because it's something that I've been waiting to read for a really long time, and I don't want my experience of reading that book to be tainted by everything else that's going on in my life. So that is why I am ending the vlog here, and I'm sorry that if it's unsatisfying or whatever, but like I said, I didn't want to waste all of the footage that I already filmed, and I wanted to participate in Buzzwordathon and vlog it every single time that I did it, so I completed what I wanted to do, and I was able to finish one book. So now let's talk about that book before I officially finish this vlog. I'm sorry if that was a total ramble, but I am so scatterbrained at the moment, so it is what it is. But The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, I have finished it, and I have to say I probably will give it a 3.5 star rating. One of the things, pretty much everything that I've said already about this book, I still stand by the end. I didn't feel super connected to the characters. I feel like it had a very slow start, which personally made me kind of lose interest in it. I know I said that personal preference, I would have preferred if this was told in the first person. It's kind of funny because by the end of the book, it almost gives a reason as to why it specifically is told in the third person. So I guess I really can't fault the book for that. I couldn't anyway because it's personal preference, but like it has a reason as to why it's told in the third person. By the end of the story though, I will say it's like there's the ending and then the ending. I don't know if that makes sense. There's like the kind of twist ending, and I was like, okay, I can appreciate this element of the story. Obviously, I don't want to give spoilers. But then there's how the book actually ends, and then it's just kind of like, that was a little unsatisfying, not gonna lie. I don't know if that makes sense because I obviously don't want to give away spoilers. It's very open-ended, and as far as I know, there is no sequel happening. So I didn't really like the openness of the ending. I found it to be very unsatisfying. So in the end, it's like a 3.5 star rating. I feel like I'm kind of in the middle of everybody because people seem to either really love this book or really hate this book, but I'm just kind of indifferent about it at the moment. I can see why people love it, and I can see why people hate it. So that's that. So yeah, that brings us, I guess, to the end of this vlog. Like I said, I'm so sorry if, much like this book, this vlog was very unsatisfying, but it is what it is. And I know in the past when I used to do reading vlogs more often, like every other one of my videos on my channel was a reading vlog, I used to get comments from people saying that the reason that they liked my reading vlogs was because I was very open and honest in them about like if I was having a bad mental health day or like whatever it was that I was going on in my life, and like I didn't read like other reading vlogs usually go where you're like satisfying reading a whole bunch of books. I understand why people read like that and why that's really enjoyable to watch, but I used to get comments about how people liked my vlogs because I think they were a little bit more realistic for some other viewers. So hopefully you guys will get the same thing out of this video. Like, this is just what happens in life, and things don't always go to plan, and you read books and sometimes they don't go to plan either. So yes, I will not take up any more of your time now. That brings us to the end of this vlog. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys still enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!